Time this morning, and thank you, Jason, for that gracious introduction. I am Pat Ward. The people that knew me when I was this tall still call me Patrick. Most people everywhere else in my adult life call me Pat. You can call me whatever you want me, just don't call me late for a meal. No, corny jokes. I love corny jokes. I tell you what, I just want to say as well, Jason does a fantastic job. I gave him just a very light outline of what I was going to be preaching on today, and I tell you, the music and the scripture and everything, phenomenal. You just don't know how refreshing that is. It used to, for 10 years, I spent my time obviously preaching, but also planning music, rehearsing music, leading music, and as well as preaching and praying. So it's been very wonderful to get to experience. This is the good life, I'm here to tell you. But it's wonderful to be here with you today. That song we sang, Friend of God, that's fantastic. I hope we can sing that again in a little while, if you'll permit me. But my first sermon I preached was 16 years ago right here. It was a Sunday night. Pastor Jim Daniel was our pastor, and Clint Ben more or less voluntold me to do it. And so on a Sunday night, 16 years ago, I preached my first sermon right here in this pulpit. And it was a different crowd back then. And I tell you, that's one of the neat things. I'll just tell you, after that, I left 15 years. Was gone 15 years, went to Southern Nazarene University, studied theology and ministry, met my precious wife. We were married in 2006, graduated 2007. Spent the next 10 years pastoring in Oklahoma and in southwest Arkansas until July of last year, and we realized it was time for a change and stepped out of the pastoral role, came back home, was fortunate enough to get to go work full-time for the National Guard on active duty and finishing officer candidate school. And I tell you what, it is great to be here. It's been a lot of fun for me. It's a lot of fun to get to come back home again. But you know, there is a lot of truth to the saying you can't go home again because it's not the same. But at the same time, it's wonderful to be here. And the best part of being back here is Brockington Road Church of the Nazarene. It really is. I look forward to Wednesdays and Sundays. I love going to Sunday school with Dana and Melanie Bowers. That is a highlight of my week. I love sitting in choir practice and cutting up with Stacy on the back row. I love getting reacquainted with old friends. It is so fun for me to get to spend time with Ty and Brooke George and Josh Says and Chance Edge and Ashley McDowell, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's amazing for me. Josh and Chance and I, you know, we grew up here, went to college together, and now we're back here together. So we've spent a large chunks of our lives together. I also love the new friends that I've been privileged to make here. I'm so proud I get to call J.D. McDowell a friend of mine. Brad and Megan, Blake and Stephanie, Andrew and Amber. There's so many of you. I'm so thrilled to get to make new friends here. It's a great thing. And I tell you, I have this deep longing for friendship in my life. Well, it's one of the sad things about moving around is you move away from friends, and even you're still friends, but the closeness, the connection doesn't tend to be there always. And friendship is just so important. It's important to me, and it should be important to you, and I'll tell you why. Because let me tell you this. You show me your friends, and I will show you your future. You show me your friends, and I will show you your future. What does that mean? Well, sociologists have taught for years. You are the average of your 5 closest friends. So if you have close friends that are good with finances and manage their household well and are looking forward to a future where they're debt-free and looking to do great things for the kingdom of God, chances are you're going to fall in the middle of that road. If your friends are a bunch of wild things who like to go out and party and you know, smoke some of that wacky tobacco and get involved in all kinds of mischief, I hate to tell you this, but you're probably going to fall in the middle of the road with those friends. If your friends are spiritually focused, that are centered on raising their children in a Christ-like way, that they model their lives around the church and around being generous as God is being generous, chances are you're going to more closely align with those friends than you think. Like it or not, you become like those people that you run with. So the question I ask you now is what kind of people are you running with? Are you running with the right people in your life? Who are your closest friends? Do you even have close friends? Because the truth is, it's epidemic nowadays that we generally don't have close friends anymore. 20 years ago, the average American adult had 5 to 6 very close friends. In 2017, the average is 1 to 0. We don't have close relationships. Do you want to become like those you were with? Do you want to have a strong marriage? Do you want to have finances like the people that you surround yourself with? Do you want to have a spiritual life like the people you're in? Like me, do you want to be in better shape than the shape you're in? You show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. A favorite scripture of mine, I read time and time again, and I recite this to myself nearly daily almost, is from Proverbs chapter 13, verse 20. It's very simple. You can memorize it right now, I bet. It simply says, walk with the wise and become wise. If you're walking with wise people, it's going to rub off. And then he goes on to say, for a companion of fools suffers harm, or suffers much harm, depending on what version you read. Walk with the wise and become wise. For a companion of fools suffers harm. If you're around passionate, positive, hardworking, faith-filled people, there's good news. You're going to become more like them. On the other hand, if you're around lazy, critical, self-centered, negative people, you're going to become more like them. I'll tell you, one of the best compliments I have ever received in my adult life was from the wife of a friend of mine, and she told me one time, he wasn't around, she said, he is a different person when he's around you. And I tell you, boy, that made my chest swell up. That was awesome. That was so great. Man, have a positive impact. Sad truth is, there's been other times that people I've been around, I've become like them, and not in a good way. This idea of who we surround ourselves with, the people we surround ourselves with, is so important. It's important if you're 10 years old. It's important if you're 100 years old. And every age in between. And you know, the funny thing is, here in the United States, we're in the wealthiest 1% in the world. We talked about this in Sunday school this morning. Our view of things is so skewed because we're so rich and we don't even know it. We don't even realize a lot of times how wonderful our lives are. But even though we're in that wealthiest 1%, so many of us, we are still in poverty. Because you see, there's 3 different types of poverty. Now we all understand what material poverty is talking about. We're talking about money. We're talking about possessions, basic needs, things that you need for life. We can understand that kind of poverty. You can turn on the television and see the infomercials that are asking you to give to relieve world poverty. There's that kind of poverty. And then there's also spiritual poverty. Spiritually impoverished. People that are deep in sin, that are far from God and desperately need to see the light of God's grace that needs to shine upon them and draw them out of their sin, to bring them out of that deep, miry clay that we spoke about. There's spiritual poverty. But then there's this third kind of poverty that is sweeping across the Western world, and it's relational poverty. In our world, especially since the end of World War II, if you study this, we have become fiercely independent as a people in our country. We value independence above so much else, that I can do this, I can become this, I can have this. If I work hard, I can be this, and I can have this. This is who I am. It's all about me, and we become me-centered. And independence can be a good thing when it drives you to certain things. But something that we have forgotten is that being independent can also be distinctly not Christian. It's not good. We have this idea that's been kind of fostered in the last few years, the last 20 or 30 years or so, that the sum and total of Christianity is about me having a personal relationship with Jesus. And about you having a personal relationship with Jesus. And yes, that's 100% true. You must have a personal relationship with Jesus, and I must have a personal relationship with Jesus, but something that we're missing out on, we're missing one of the better parts, and that's having a shared relationship with Jesus. We settle. We settle for so much less than God designed us for. Because you see, what's better than experiencing God on your own What's better than me experiencing God on my own is us coming together and experiencing the glory and the power and the majesty and the goodness and the character of God in the context of that broader, deep, biblical community we call the church. But the reality is so few of us have that. You could be here today and have that. We're relationally impoverished. Why is that? What causes relational poverty? And I want to spend the next few minutes talking about some of the causes of relational poverty. And things you might be very aware of and you don't even realize is that increased mobility is a cause of relational poverty. We don't sit still. It used to be that people lived within a few miles of where they were born their whole lives. It's not that way anymore. The average American moves once every 5 years. Do you realize that? If you're between the ages of 20 and 40, me and my wife, we fall into there. Where are y'all at? Anybody else between 20 and 40? We move every 3 years, on average. We don't sit still. We move around. We keep moving different places, and every time we move, we leave relationships behind. We leave family behind. We leave places behind. We're mobile. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's the reality is that we have an increased mobility in this day and age. A second cause is modern conveniences. I can remember being in college and learning about this. It kind of blew my mind. Air conditioning is a wonderful thing. I don't know about you, but if that air conditioning were to go out at the house today, more than likely I'm going to pay whatever it costs to get somebody out there to get that turned back on. Because it gets hot in Arkansas, right? That humidity is nothing to be played with. But the funny thing is what people did before they had air conditioning? We went outside and sat on the porch in the evening. We would go outside, we would try to find a breeze and get comfortable, and while you're out there, guess what you're going to do? You're going to talk to people. You're going to talk to your neighbors. You're going to build a relationship with those around you. And then something else that happened is that we started building attached garages on the houses. Who has a garage? Show of hands, who has an attached garage on their house? Who of you are fortunate enough to have one of those wonderful electric garage door openers that door opens up and closes by itself and you don't have to do it? And you've got that little button that you stick there in your car and all you have to do is hit it and that door opens and shuts, right? So what happens is we go out into our garage from our nice air conditioning, we get in our car, you shut the door, you start the engine, you hit that button, you back out, you drive off, you go wherever it is that you go, you do whatever it is you do, you come back. When you start pulling in that driveway, you hit that button again, you pull into that garage, you shut that door, then you get out and go in your house, and you never had to talk to anybody, did you? We isolate ourselves. We don't have to see our neighbors. We don't have to talk to them. We can leave and never have to say a word to them. I've got a neighbor that I'm lucky to catch when they're backing out of the driveway, and I'll wave at them and try to talk to them real quick. We've isolated ourselves. Online shopping. I don't know about you, but I love Amazon. I love the fact that I can sit there in my recliner and order anything I need, and it'll be there in 2 days. And many, many things my wife will tell you that I don't need, but I can still have it there in 2 days. It's wonderful. I'm not knocking it. I think it's great. But we don't get out and go places where we have to interact. Probably one of the worst things to happen was the advent of the answering machine. Now, I don't know about y'all, but in our house, until I was in high school, we still had a phone that had if you wanted to talk to somebody in the next room from where the phone was, you had to have one of those long spiral cords that you could stretch around the corner if you wanted some privacy to talk to somebody. That was how it always used to be, right? If you had to have a long phone cord if you wanted to go in the next room with the phone. And then we got a little more high-tech. Answering machines became created. If you weren't there to answer that phone, good news, somebody could leave a message. You can call them back. But then we discovered something else. Even if you are home, you don't have to answer that phone, and it can go to the answering machine. And you can decide if you want to talk to that person or not, right? Before that, if you wanted to know who was calling, you actually had to answer the phone. And then we got caller ID. And that was really great. You could see the name come up right away immediately of who was calling and know that if you wanted to screen that call out or not. But what's happened is that's evolved to the point now, I don't want you to self-identify, but you might be guilty of this now. What we'll do is we'll wait for somebody to call us on our cell phone. We'll look at it. We'll wait for it to go to voicemail. We'll listen to their voicemail, and then what will we do? We will text them back. And we have created this collective fear of voice communication with other human beings. All the time becoming more and more isolated. The third cause of relational poverty that we see unique in our society today is the rise in social media. And I want to acknowledge what a tremendous blessing social media is. It's great that we can get church updates on Facebook, mass communication, it's a breeze. Instantly we can communicate with people. But at the same time, it's caused an epidemic of deferred loneliness. You know, if I'm lonely right now, I can get out my phone, I can pull up Facebook, I can make a post, I can put a picture on there, I can take a selfie, and make it look just right, and post it on there, and almost immediately somebody's going to hit that like button, or leave a comment, or leave an emoji, and I get this instant feedback that somebody cares about me, and I am validated. But the whole time I realize how little effort it takes to hit that button. And so it leaves me craving more. It momentarily relieves my loneliness, but it leaves me wanting for more. One thing I did when last time I had a class of teenagers to teach was I asked them, how many friends do you have on Facebook? It is not uncommon for teenagers to have 500 or more Facebook friends today, easily. And then I asked them this question. If you were stranded downtown tonight with no ride, how many people do you know that you could actually call and would get out of bed and come down there and get you? And the truth is they didn't know one person that would. We live in a world where you can have 1,000 friends on social media, but there is not one person you know that you could call if you were in need right now that would be there for you. And so while we might have contact momentarily with all these people, we're left missing something. And the truth is that it's not something, it's someone. And the even deeper truth is it's not someone, it's a group of someones. We've become isolated. But you see, God didn't design us for isolation. He didn't design us to walk through this life on our own. He didn't design us to have to figure it all out. He didn't design us to have to be strong enough that we could handle all that life throws on us on our own. God designed us for community. And so He gave us something really great. He gave us the church. He gave us a community. And I'm to tell you today, what I'm coming to is this. You might be one community away from changing the course of your destiny. One group of strong, committed believers. One group of people that are going the same place in their lives and in their family that you want your life and your family to go. One community away from changing the future of your family, the future generations of your family, and your ability to make a difference in this world. What was the church designed to be? Well, let's look back to the beginning of it, at the original Christian community, and see what it looked like. You can find that in the book of Acts. Chapter 2, starting in verse 42 through 46, it says, they devoted themselves first to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship. You know, fellowship is a kind of a fun word. If you hear somebody use the word fellowship, you know they've at least been around the church at some point in their life, because the church is basically the only group of people in the world that use the word fellowship. Friendship. They devoted themselves to it. To the breaking of bread, they ate together, and to prayer, they prayed together. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts. They did life together. They were there with each other. They shared what they had together. They loved each other. They actually cared about each other. They were there for each other's kids. They shared their meals together because they actually liked being together. That is what the community of the church was designed to be. That is what God designed His people for. That's the kind of life He desires for us to have. Let me share with you. And what I want to do is in our last few minutes together is, Stacy, he asked this morning, he said, tell you what I want from your sermon this morning. I want you to be standing by the front door at 11:45. I'll see if I can accommodate that. I don't know about that, but we'll see. But in these next few minutes, I want to talk about some of the qualities of great communities. This one, my wife will laugh about this because she knows what I'm talking about. Community has refrigerator rights. You know what refrigerator rights are? Acts chapter 2, verse 44, it said, all the believers were together and had everything in common. No, don't get me wrong. I'm not standing up here talking about communism. I promise you I'm not. But I'll tell you this, if you say that you're coming over to my house, or if I invite you over to my house, chances are this is what's going to happen in the hours before you're supposed to get there, or as soon as I can get home anyway. We're going to start cleaning like crazy. We're going to clean that nasty bathroom, shine off that sink, try to get the fingerprints and toothpaste off the mirror, make it look nice. I'm going to go to vacuuming the rugs. Under the coffee table where our dog lies, under the dining table where my kids drop all their crumbs. I'm going to be getting all that hardwood floor, try to make it, not look like it's covered in filth. I mean, we're not dirty people, I promise you. It sounds that way, but we're not. But we're going to clean house. We're going to try to make that living room look great so that everything looks its best, so that when you walk into our house, it's clean and you know that, we're not dirty people, which is great. And that's most people, but the truth is there's another group of people. There are those few people that when they come to our house, well, for one thing, they don't even have to knock. If they see that door's unlocked, they're going to open it and they're going to walk right in. They might say hi. And then you know what they're going to do? They're going to go to the kitchen. And they're going to open that refrigerator and they're going to help themselves to whatever they want. Isn't that exactly what Rhonda does? And they're going to drink my tea and they're going to eat my snacks, and then what they're going to do, if I'm going to turn, they'll probably be sitting in my recliner. Why? Because they have refrigerator rights. Because we have this level of intimacy, this level of being known to each other where that's acceptable. And it's okay that you come into my house. It's okay that you eat my food. Why? Because we love each other. Why? Because we care about each other. Why? Because what I have is yours. We're family. Refrigerator rights. Do you have anybody in your life that has refrigerator rights? Take that a little deeper. Do you have anybody that has refrigerator rights in your life? That knows about the mess in your life? That knows about the struggles you're facing, that knows about your problems, about your kids' problems, and has permission to talk with you about it. Refrigerator rights. That's a quality of the great community. The next quality is this. Communities are made of people with flawed feet. What does that mean? We'll get there. Romans chapter 15, verse 7 says, accept one another then, just as Christ accepts you, in order to bring praise to God. Now, I have a confession to make to you this morning. It's tough. I'm a hard time with this. I have socially unacceptable feet. Some of you out there are giggling right now because you've got them too. Company comes over, probably the first thing I'm going to do is put my shoes on. Why? Because I've got size 13 feet, they're as flat as pancakes, and I've got 3-inch long toes. Between ruck marching and running and everything else I do, I've got black nails, I've got no nails, I've got funny shaped nails, I've got ingrown nails, I've got calluses. It's ugly. I'm here to tell you, I am in recovery, you'll be glad to know, and once in a while I will wear flip-flops out. I've even worn them to choir practice. But the whole time I'm thinking about how nasty my feet are, I promise you. It was so bad, I went for a while back, I had some buddies in the Army, they told me, you got to get a pedicure. You don't even know how great this is until you try it. So I went with Sarah and we went and got pedicures, and I tell you, I felt so sorry for that poor girl working on my feet. She earned every cent of that $40. I don't know how she didn't put a clothespin over her nose and sunglasses, but she did it. I'm here to tell you. But typically, I try to cover those things up. Why? Why would I do that? Because just like you, we try to hide our flaws, right? If you got a big belly and you're self-conscious about it like I tend to be, you try to wear clothes that don't accentuate it, right? If if you got chicken legs or bird legs or your legs are so wide, it's blinding, you try to wear long pants, right? Because you don't want people to see that, right? But what if we didn't? What if we didn't try to hide our flaws? What if instead of when we got up and we came to church on Sunday morning, instead of putting on our Sunday clothes and then we plaster on our Sunday smile and our Sunday facade that everything is perfect in our lives, we came together as broken and flawed feet people, realizing just how messed up we all are and how much we all need God's grace? What if we embraced real, intimate relationships? Well, there's a risk to it. And the risk is that there are people with crippled feet. What do crippled feet look like? They take many forms. It can be hard to put names to them. You might have people that are struggling with pornography or alcohol or drug addiction. You've got people that have got kids with disciplinary challenges. You got people that may be neglecting their family for their job, for their career. You've got others that just find it hard to be supportive. You've got people who struggle with materialism. You've got people who struggle with being consistent spiritual leaders in their homes. Crippled feet. So we try to hide our crippled feet. We try to pretend that our feet aren't crippled. And it never gets any better. There's a story in the Old Testament. It's a favorite of mine, and I got the privilege of reading it again the other day in my one-year Bible reading. By the way, this Bible that I'm reading through this year, it's actually the Living Bible. It was one that came from my grandparents' house. And when I got it out to read it this year, the funny thing was I found the sermon that I preached the first time I preached in this church 16 years ago. That's just a side note. But there's a story in the Old Testament in the book of 2 Samuel chapter 9. And it's a story about a man by the name of Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth was the son of Jonathan, who was the prince and eldest son of Saul, the first king over Israel. When Saul and Jonathan were both killed on Mount Gilboa in a battle, the fear was, as was the custom at the time, that all of the king's family would then be exterminated by the incoming ruler to make sure there was never anyone to challenge his throne. So Mephibosheth's nurse, he was a baby, she picked him up and tried to flee with him, but she fell and she mangled his feet in falling. He had crippled feet. He spent the next good part of his life hiding out until David one day, in sadness, was asking, is there anyone left from his beloved friend Jonathan and King Saul's family that he could show love and kindness to? And he found Mephibosheth, and Mephibosheth regarded himself as nothing because he had crippled feet. But David took him and showed him kindness and restored to him everything that had been his family's. And he told Mephibosheth, said this, you are to come and to eat at my table all the days of your life. And in 2 Samuel chapter 9, verse 13, it says, and Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem because he always ate at the king's table. He was lame in both feet. Now I want you to think about this for a second. Mephibosheth had crippled feet. He was socially unacceptable. But what happens when you come and sit at the table? Where are your feet? Feet are under the table. When Mephibosheth would come and eat with David, his feet were covered by the king's table. And what I see here is this beautiful picture of what God designs His community to be. It's a place where we come, and yes, we have crippled feet, and maybe I have crippled feet, and maybe you have crippled feet, but when we come to the King's table, when we come to the Lord's table, the table covers our crippled feet. Communities have people with crippled feet. And the third quality I want to share with you is this: communities fight lions. Well, that sounds strange. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8. Now, I don't know if you're a cat person. If you are, I will pray for you. I'm sorry. Because, in the Bible, the Bible doesn't talk about house cats, but it does talk about lions, and it tends to not be good. It says in 1 Peter 5, 8, be alert and be of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. There's a lot of truth to that. Friends, we have a spiritual enemy. We have a spiritual enemy who wants to take you out. You know, we watch a lot of nature shows and documentaries with our kids, Planet Earth, shows like that. And it's a lot of fun to watch and to see the animals in the different places. It's amazing. But invariably, before long, you get one of these showdowns where you've got a predator looking to eat something that's not a predator. You know what I mean? And there's a video, it's great. If you get time, you can go on YouTube. In fact, what I should have done is got it for you to watch today. But it's called The Battle at Kruger, if you want to YouTube it. And what you see here is that you got some water buffaloes that are out by this watering hole, you know, going out to get a drink. And there's this little water buffalo, little baby water buffalo. He's not very big. And then, as you always see on these nature shows, then you see some lions. And those lions are hungry. And those lions see this little young baby water buffalo off by itself, and they are on it. And, you know, typically we know what happens next. You know, the lions get a good meal, and it's a sad, and you're trying to change the channel before your kids ask too many questions. Except this battle doesn't go that way. Because, you see, the strength of the water buffalo isn't in one water buffalo. The strength of the water buffalo is in the herd. Because the next thing you see is so cool, you see the whole herd of water buffaloes come. And the next thing you see is those lions running off with their tails between their legs. I want to tell you something this morning you need to know. If you were on your own, if you were trying to live this Christian life on your own and to be an island, well, I've got my relationship with Jesus and that's all it's about, you are vulnerable. And Satan is looking to pick you off. You're an easy target. Folks, our strength as followers of Jesus Christ is in our community. We were not designed to go this alone. Together, we are strong. Together, we make the church. The church is not this building. It's not four walls. It's not carpet. It's not microphones. It's not stadium seating. It's not projectors and overhead screens. It's not this great sound equipment. All that stuff is great, folks. This is awesome. We've got such an amazing facility, but it's just stuff. The church is you, and the church is me coming together and living life together and being there for each other and supporting each other and going through life together. Together trying to reach our destination. That's what the community is about. I want this. I can't tell you how bad I want this, how bad I want this kind of community for myself and for my family. I long for my family to be a part of a group of families in this church that lives out community, that we don't see each other and shake hands on Sunday and then say bye and don't give each other another thought till next Sunday. I'm not satisfied with that. I long for the church to become a place where instead of putting on a persona of perfection, we bring our flawed feet to the King's table. Where together addictions are conquered and broken. Where together pain is shared and tears are cried together. Where together we tackle uncomfortable, ugly issues. Why? Because we all have flawed feet. In a moment, I want Jason, the musician, to come. I want to sing that song again, I'm a Friend of God. We all have flawed feet. Feet that can only be covered by the King's table. No amount of your effort or my effort to cover it up, to hide it, to try to keep anybody from knowing about it is ever going to take it away. It's only when we come together with our feet to the King's table that things change. And then you know what happens when we become that kind of community? When we start to live out life together as the church the way God always intended us to be? All of a sudden, church becomes not some place you go. And it's not something you do. It becomes who we are.